I really appreciate you joining me today, and this is an update to a story that we've been covering for several years. Before I start, I want to send my condolences to the family of Craig Smalls as well, and it's been very difficult to cover this case, mainly just due to the ongoing nature of it and the ups and downs where people have been arrested and charged and then de-arrested and then re-arrested. And today, news has just broken from the Old Bailey. This is news directly from reporters that hasn't even got to the newspapers yet. And I can tell you that there's been a hung jury in relation to the murder of Craig Smalls. This means that there will be a retrial in the summer of next year. Courtney Ellis was standing trial for the murder of Craig Smalls. This occurred in Wembley in July 2019. Ellis is also accused of an attempted murder of a man called Sergey McKendy, who was also shot on the same night that Craig was. North West London rapper Skrapz, aka Christopher Kai, is also standing trial for perverting the course of justice, and the murder is thought to be linked to a feud between USG and ICT Boys, and this is what was reported in the trial. The prosecutor in this case is Anthony Orchard. And this is of course going to be a big blow to the family, who I'm sure were trying to find answers and get some closure from this traumatic time. At the end of the day, Craig was a father of several children and he was missed by a lot of people. A lot of people came out to pay respects to him, and there was also some outrage in the investigation too, where 2 police officers were under investigation for releasing the CCTV of his brutal murder. This was also documented heavily on Twitter as well, where a lot of journalists were making accusations to people before they'd even been arrested, and this is something that we'd never do on the channel because you're not meant to intervene. We have to let the due process take course. Craig Smalls, known as Smalls by his friend, was a hip-hop artist, and he was shot dead at point blank range, and it was heard in the trial that he was shot in his face outside the chicken shop, and the bullet went through his right cheek in a carefully planned attack on July the 5th, 2019. His alleged killer escaped through a series of pre-arranged getaway cars. The court said that Courtney Ellis, who is on trial for his murder, 37 years old, and Aaron Youngsan, 30 years old, have both denied murder. And the prosecution said this was an example of gang rivalry that had boiled over, and 2 others have denied perverting the course of justice by helping to destroy evidence. And this involves a blue Mini that they said was used in the murder, and it was set alight the day after. The jury in the Old Bailey that has been unable to decide the verdict today has listened to the details of the murder that took place outside the fast food restaurant Chicken Cottage, and this was on Harrow Road in Wembley. Ellis is alleged to have been the driver of the blue Mini, it was reported in court, and they said he pulled up next to Craig when an unidentified male got out of the car and shot him twice at point blank range. He was wearing dark clothing and a face mask before he shot him with the handgun. The first bullet struck his cheek and the second one hit the ground, but then bounced up and fragments went in his eye. Craig had fell to the ground and his attacker jumped back in the car, and they quickly sped off. The fast food restaurant owner dialed 999 and a large group had gathered outside, and the musician's girlfriend had turned up only 3 minutes later, so she must have been nearby in another shop of some sort. Despite the best efforts of emergency services, Craig was taken to St Mary's Hospital in Paddington, but he was pronounced dead at 9 p.m, and the cause of death was determined to be the gunshot wound to the head. Several minutes after the attack, the driver of the Mini dropped the gunman at a nearby off-licence, where he tried to open fire at a white Mercedes. So this was not reported at the time, this has only came out in the trial. Another shooting, and they said this is another musician called Sergey McKendy. And no bullet was seemingly fired, and the occupants of the Mercedes were all unharmed. So from that, I think we can say that the police must have obtained some sort of CCTV of them waving a gun at another person who they later identified to be Sergio. The prosecutor, Anthony Orchard QC, said that the murder was not a spontaneous moment, but it was a carefully planned operation between 4 defendants and the gunman, who still remains at large. They told the jury that this occurred because of a tit-for-tat rivalry between a Stonebridge gang in Brent and the Church Road soldiers from the Church End estate in Brent. And both the victim and the second target, McKenday, had appeared in rap videos with the Stonebridge gang, and they had a long-standing rivalry with the Church Road soldiers. In the hour after the fatal shooting, mobile phone records have shown that there was a lot of contact between all of the defendants. Ellis made 2 quick phone calls to his accomplice, Young Sam, and who owned a black Volvo. The black Mini was initially used and it had false number plates, and after they got it away, it was taken to Wembley Park tube station where the second shooting had occurred. Shortly afterwards, they made their way to Kingsbury where the 2 occupants were picked up by a black Volvo. The prosecution said the requirement for the second vehicle, the Volvo, was pre-arranged and the planned escape was necessary and couldn't be left to chance. The blue Mini would immediately be circulated by the police as the vehicle that was used in the murder, and they knew they had to change vehicle. The vehicle driven by Young Sam was integral to this plan. The driver had to be someone who could be trusted, the prosecution said, and Young Sam was such a person. He would know the identity of the gunman and also the driver. He would have to have known about the shooting and also all of the details that led up to it and be ready to act at a moment's notice. The prosecution went on to say that later Ellis contacted Christopher Kye, aka Skrapz, and the prosecution believes this signifies the beginning of the clear-up process. The following day, the Mini was collected by a flatbed pickup truck and disposed of, they allege, by Kye. He denied helping Ellis destroy the Mini at the scrapyard between the dates of July the 5th and July the 7th. Another man called Hooray Nicholas, 32 years old, is accused of helping the men to destroy the car also. Following Craig's death, flowers, candles and Chelsea flags were all placed outside the shop where he was shot dead. And in a touching tribute, his mother said he was a loving father, uncle, and he was a peacemaker. He was the soul of our family and he lit it up every time he came into a room. Our family was broken by what has happened and I know that he didn't deserve it. Everyone that was standing trial has denied all the offences, and this is what has led to such a long investigation and trial to follow. And now that the jury can't decide if there is enough evidence to convict, and this has resulted in it being determined as a hung jury, which, as I said at the beginning, will result in the new trial taking place in summer of next year. So I really appreciate you joining me for this update on this story that has been going on for so long and will be going on for even longer due to this trial and the falling apart. And I really appreciate everybody's tributes in the comments. Please don't forget to send your stories to news@scarcitystudios.com and follow at Scarcity Studios on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter and Facebook. And rest in peace to Craig Smalls.